Okay, cool. So Shanga Spearfishing Club has asked me to do a talk about Couta spearfishing in particular. I think the only way we're going to be able to shoot Couta again is get to the next level with this lockdown. But okay, yeah. Couta in particular, I think there's just a couple of things that we need to understand about them. First of all, their behavior when you do see them in the water. We generally find them, they're not quite on the reef per se. So they're normally, so if you get a reef that, like the best setup for a reef that you actually want to dive for Couta, for instance, Tiffany's drop off, or any other really, really good reefs, is they're like a ledge that runs pretty much parallel with the coastline. So yeah, and then obviously a pushing tide is always better. And I find they're not swimming directly over the reef. They're normally a little bit off on the sand. So I think what the problem is, the first problem with guys who are actually hunting Couta is their positioning when they're diving is incorrect. You need to be diving on the outside of the reef and looking out over the sand. I think Couta, in my experience, they patrol on the sand on the edge of the reef, and they will feed in towards the shore, obviously towards the bait fish, and then they'll move back off out on the sand. The most productive days I've had is a pushing tide and diving on the ledge and then diving slightly off the sand. Obviously, when the water's a little bit cleaner, I mean, a Couta's got very good eyesight, so what I would do is I would normally swim a little bit off the reef onto the sand and then sit there. Whether you're shore diving, you hook up on the reef, hook up on a pinnacle that you know is really good for Couta, and then just swim off the reef a little bit and then dive there. If you're diving off of a boat, the Couta, 90% of the time, I'd say, okay, not quite 90% of the time, 80% of the time, they're swimming into the current. You doing a drift, it might actually look like the Couta is actually swimming into the current, but maybe he's just holding in the current. And they're generally above the reef. So if you get a pinnacle, not necessarily a drop off, it's always better to start way above the reef for a couple of reasons. Obviously, you've got to breathe up so you can dive. Also, get your stuff sorted out. If you're diving with a flasher, get your flasher set. And you need time to do that. And then generally, before you even drift onto the ledge or drift onto the reef, you'll often see the Couta first, the game fish, then the bait fish, then the pinnacle will come up with a reef fish on the bottom. So, yeah, I mean, that's obviously when there's a lot of current. Definitely, you get a lot more Couta when there is a bit of current. When the water's a bit stagnant, then you don't see them too often. Another thing as well is when you're planning your dive, say you're planning a shore dive, especially for Couta, you always want to necessarily be on the upside of the reef, not just for Couta, just for any fish. All the columns of fish always congregate up reef, or up current, should I say, on the reef. So you generally want to try plan your dive that you can swim out and get up current. There's no point in swimming over the reef and then trying to get up current. You're just making the work harder for yourself. Again, Couta, just generally where they swim in the water column, they're not like snook where they surface orientated. They like to swim mid-water or towards the bottom. Although I have seen them on the surface, especially if you get a thermocline or like gorilla spots in the water, they definitely swim in that column of clean water, that clean warm water. So if you can try and dive in that column, that'd be fantastic. I mean, the problem is guys either dive past the Couta and then lie on the floor, or the guys lie on the surface looking down. Sometimes that's doing the spaceman and hovering mid-water and looking out to sea and looking for the Couta. That also can help you spot them and be successful. It's a lot easier to hunt the fish when you're on the same level as them. Again, when you're lying on the bottom, you must look up, look around. Another thing as well, I think a big mistake guys do when they're diving for Couta is they're looking for a fish. Like they're literally waiting to see an entire fish. That's the worst thing you can do. You need to start looking for a fin or an outline. And in Couta in particular, you can actually see that black spot on the tail. That's very important. Just not to look for a fish, but to look for something that resembles a fish, or look for a spot, look for a shape, look for a shadow. Some of the biggest Couta I've shot, literally being off the reef on the sand, 18 to 20 meters, and they're swimming almost with their bellies touching the sand. And if you're on the surface with your flasher, you won't see that fish. The reason I spotted them was literally because I saw their shadow on the sand. So that's something to consider. Look for shapes, fins, spots. That goes with any spearfishing, you know. Being able to identify the fish before you actually can shoot the fish, and getting into position and getting into time and preparing yourself for the shot. That's massive as far as spearfishing goes. Just any species, not necessarily Couta. Sorry, just hold on. There we go. I'm getting these little, I think people are joining the group and they're popping up on my screen for some reason. Another thing as well is, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I don't know if you guys want to ask a couple of questions to Ryan about like positioning yourself with Couta and where you find them in water columns, that kind of thing. I think next what I'm going to talk about is gear, and then obviously spots and areas and time of year and that kind of thing. But I think while we're just talking about identifying Couta and places to dive for Couta, are there a couple of questions on that kind of thing?
Marcus, just quickly, sorry, if you are getting guys looking to sign in, I think you're the host, so you're going to have to let them into the meeting. So just approve them to come into the meeting then.
Okay, click okay.
Yeah.
Cool, no worries.
Sorry, just one question from me regarding, you mentioned flashes specifically. Are you always diving with a flasher?
No. Honestly, I learned pretty much, I did my schooling with Brad Whitaker. He is still amazing every time I dive with him. To this day, I just get blown away with that extra skill and capability and calmness and collectedness when he's diving. Just hold on. Admit. Okay, cool. People are joining.
Cool.
So yeah, basically, he doesn't dive with a flasher. He said to me once, he said, "I am the human flasher." Fish are naturally inquisitive. If they weren't, you wouldn't shoot anything. So I promise you hovering like a spaceman, looking unthreatening. That's a massive thing, eh? Looking unthreatening. Pull your arms in, pull your feet in. You don't want to be like looking like this, like with your gun pointing this way and your arm pointing that way and your fins like a starfish. You want to pull yourself in. You want to have your profile as small as possible. Hold your gun underneath you, that kind of thing. Just look unthreatening. And you'd be surprised. A fish will be like, "What is that?" You know, and they'll swim in, they'll have a good look at you. And that's very, very important. But on the other side of it, a flasher is and can be very, very effective. I think that more so with fish that are feeding, you know, and aggressive. If you got a flasher, a working flasher, it definitely does make a difference. Sometimes shore diving, you know, Couta might not be your focus species, so to lug a flasher around with you is can be a bit of a mission. So, but if you both diving and you're diving in places like Sodwana and Vidal, then absolutely you need to have a flasher, because also you opening the target species. Another thing that a flasher does is it will also hold a fish there for a little bit longer. So you've got a little bit more time. Maybe you've just surfaced off the dive and you haven't breathed up for your next dive. You know, you've got a little bit of time to catch a breath and dive down and actually chase the fish. Or that fish that you might not see might actually come in a little bit closer. The other problem that I find with what guys do generally is diving with flashers is they stand and they stare at the flasher. They hang on the surface and they stare down at the flasher. A fish is going to swim around your flasher on its peripheral vision. So what it can see, it's going to look at the flasher. Now, if you're directly above, you can only see this much because of your mask. You actually can't see that fish. So a flasher, especially in dirty water, is actually not that effective unless you're at the level with the fish. So all that is doing in dirty water or in terrible conditions is it's not really helping you. You know what I mean? If anything, a flasher is more to pull the fish in so you can see it without staring at the flasher, you know, especially in clean water. And then being able to have time just to hold that fish's attention to get in range to shoot it. Again, shore diving, I'm just going to tap on it again. I generally don't dive, even if I'm targeting Couta specifically, I generally don't dive with a flasher for them. I know there's a lot of guys, I'm not saying what I do is right or wrong. I'm not saying what I do is the best way or the only way. What works for you is what works for you. I mean, it just depends, eh?
Markus, when you're diving with a...
Okay. As far as flashes go, I find the most effective for Couta is wide plate, like, and then a buzz bomb. The more and more I dive nowadays, the more and more I realize that you really cannot beat that buzz bomb upsuck wide inner flasher. That is incredible. I think the plates and the blades definitely make a difference to pull the fish in from distance, but that buzz bomb holds that fish. It holds that fish. It holds its attention for a little bit longer, which is pretty cool. Okay, sorry, Ryan.
When you're diving with a flasher, how deep are you letting it down? And then what sort of level are you sitting? Are you sitting level with a flasher when you're in the water? Whereabouts are you positioning yourself in the water column?
It's a very good question. Okay, so I know we joke about it. You get these flasher divers nowadays. So what they do is they set their flasher and they sit and they hold it and they wait for something to swim onto their flasher. There's no point in setting your flasher too deep. So if a fish comes in on it, because remember they're pretty camouflaged, eh? A Couta's back is not very visible to you, especially if you're looking straight down at it. So there's no point in setting your flasher too far down where you're sitting on the surface that if something swims onto your flasher, you can't actually see it. But that also goes for the other way around. If you are reefed up on a pinnacle and you're diving and your flasher's hanging off your float, there's no point in having it hanging 5 meters off the surface when you're lying on the bottom at 20 meters. If something swims onto your flasher 15 meters above you, you can't see it. So it's kind of, there's no hard and fast rule, I believe, with setting a flasher. So I think it depends on the species you're targeting. So if it was this chat about Couta, so what I would do is I would set my flasher at where I can see clearly from the surface if something swims in on it. If I was drifting, doing a drift with my flasher, so I could dive down to it. I would also set my weight belt so I was neutral, so you don't sink below your flasher or don't float up from the level that your flash is, because generally that's the level you're actually going to be shooting the fish at. So you want to be the most neutral at that point while you're diving with your flasher. So I mean, it's such a thing, you know. Like maybe what I would do is if I was shore diving and I was reefed up on a reef, and there was a layer on the surface which was a bit snotty and not so lacquer, and the water was very blue at the bottom. You know, I would set my flasher very, very deep in that good column of water, because that's where the Couta swim, in that column of water. You set your flasher in there, and you either dive to that level and you hover there and wait for the fish to come in, or you dive to the floor where you can clearly look up and see your flasher if something swims into it, and you chase up and shoot the fish. As I said, there's no hard and fast rule. You need to just, I think the biggest issue with guys who start diving and guys who are coming into spearfishing is they don't see fish. And that's very important. If you can increase your chances to see fish, then obviously you know, I think Brad actually told me this once upon a time. He's like, you go through a process in spearfishing. You start diving, and all you want to do is just shoot something. Then all of a sudden you start seeing the odd fish, but you really cannot connect. You can't shoot the fish. And then all of a sudden you start seeing a lot of fish, and something just clicks. You know, you get this fish sense where the fish is there and I can shoot it. And Ryan, I'm going to use an example here. I honestly don't believe you are seeing fish, man. There's fish swimming right past you, and you need to be looking for that tail, that fin, that spot, that outline, that shadow. You know, you get mesmerized by your flasher, or, you know, sorry, but I am using it as an example here. But you need to look for fish, you know, and And then trust me, and then eventually that's going to click and you're going to start seeing a lot of fish. But then there's that next level, which is that fish sense, being able to put the spear into the fish and then landing the fish, which is a big thing. And I think every single competent spearo goes through that process somewhere along their lifeline. I think Rich will back me up on this one. Hey, just give me a thumbs up, Rich. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool, right?
So yeah, I think Marcus, maybe just cover a few aspects of Couta diving. So one aspect, obviously closer to home, the water's a little bit dirtier. You're probably shore diving, and then maybe another aspect where you can sort of travel maybe further north to Zululand, where the water's clearer. You're probably diving off a boat. How do you approach the two dives differently?
Okay, cool. I'm just going to talk about Couta in particular. Okay.
Yeah.
So where you find them on our coastline, guys have shot them all year round. But KZN specifically, we always said the first ones arrive around on the 15th. There's a public holiday on the 15th of December, and someone always catches or shoots one on the 15th of December for some reason. It just seems like the start of it. And then I found, I'm not talking about the good old days, I'm talking about recent times, but I found the sardine run is like a vacuum. So the pilot shoal, the stars that move through, I find all the Couta move with that pilot shoal. And if you can get that timing right, it's good. But generally, after the main shoal comes through, you battle to get Couta after that point, in KZN specifically. If there's no sardine run, I've caught and shot Couta right up until mid-August. I've had some crazy good dives for big fish in August on the KZN coast. Zululand, Sodwana, you can shoot Couta all year, but again, it definitely spins out in that August, September, October months. It does get a little bit quiet that time of year. Shore diving, as again, I think less Couta is shot nowadays because everyone dives too shallow. I mean, in all the years I've been diving, and I dive a lot shallow compared to other guys. I've shot 2 Couta on point, which is like less than 8 meters of water. Besides that, I don't think I've seen Couta shallower than 15 meters. So 15 to 35 meters is generally what you want to be diving. And unless the KZN coast is clean and warm and conditions are nice and the current's not too bad, generally the guys don't dive deep enough to actually see the Couta. There's a bunch of guys who specifically go target them, and so it's more a boat diving species nowadays to shoot. Zululand, I mean, Vital, Sodwana, they're there all the time. Guys are diving, and you're diving deeper in reefs. I mean, if you think about it realistically, the shallow spots are 12 meters plus. So you are diving in the right zone to shoot Couta. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So time of year, just to recap, is from about December through to August if there's no sardine action. Otherwise, you can shoot the odd one midwinter to spring in Zululand. But other than that, and then obviously there's a different size range. So in summer we definitely get the shodies more, and then towards winter we get the crocs, the big fish, the 20 kilogram plus fish. Cool, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, guys, if you've got any questions, please just give us a shout. Everybody knows how to use that chat. Otherwise, my number's there. I haven't got any SMSs from you guys yet. Marcus, just talk us through, do you approach a boat dive differently to a shore dive? I mean, what are the fundamentals? What guns are you using? That type of stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Ryan. I'll touch on a little bit on the equipment that I use. Boat dive to shore dive, Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same. So also learning from Brad throughout the years, he said if the water's clean and you think you're going to bump into Couta, rather take a gun that's more specifically for that kind of fish. So the shore dive, if you know the water's clean and you know you're going to dive a little bit deeper and you're going to dive the drop offs like places like, so I'm just talking about my local spots. So my local Couta spots are Tiffany's or Sheffield or Westbrook. That's the deeper rooted Westbrook. That's generally where I've shot. I'd say 80% of the Couta I've shot on shore dives. Even like Umtarumi, I've been down there. I've got Scotborough on shore dives and shot Couta. And if you think it's in that time of year, the water's clean, the guys, there's a bit of current, and you think you're going to bump into a Couta, you'd rather have a slightly bigger gun. I mean, our go-to was, our standard gun we used to carry was a 1.1 with a single band, 18 or 20 more rubber, single wrap, and I shot a lot of Couta with that gun. But that was my shoot anything go-to gun. If I knew the water was going to be good and clean, I'd jump up to a 1.3 with a single band, 18 or 20 more rubber, with a single wrap, with a real gun, and I've literally shot every single fish with that 1.3 real gun with a single band, and I cannot explain to you how many Couta I've shot with that 1.3. That was my go-to gun. But the difference between a 1.1 single wrap and a 1.3 single wrap guns with a single band is massive. Now with the roller guns, it just throws another spanner in the works. To be honest, I don't dive with a single band rubber gun anymore. I only dive with roller guns because the technology is there, and yes, they are that much better. I promise you guys, I honestly can tell you they are that much better. So for instance, a 90 centimeter roller can shoot as far as a 1.3 which was my big gun, my Couta gun. But to be honest with you guys now, I actually haven't shot a Couta with my 90 roller. Although I've shot a 38 kilogram dogger on a shore dive with it. I just, you know, this, like I was saying to you, is like if I thought I was going to bump into a Couta, I'd always upsize my gun. So like for instance, instead of taking the 1.1 single band gun, I'd shift to the 1.3 single band gun. Now what I'm doing is I go for a shore dive, I'll happily carry my 90 roller and I'll shoot a Couta with it, no problem. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind. It's more than enough gun. But if the water's clean, I'll take a 1.1 roller, which is a cannon compared to, a 1.3, a standard 1.3. Even a 1.2, I've shot two very, very big Couta in my life, and I spined both of them. And I shot them with a 1.2 roller, and I shot right through the spine. I mean, that spinal bone is like that thick. Okay? So I wonder if I shot that same fish with a 1.3, what would have happened? Would I have landed the fish if I hit that bone? Remember, you're shooting through that much meat, and then also the shot's a bit angled, so now the meat goes like, so you know what I mean? It's just a little bit of peace of mind. If you're going to be hunting Couta, you've got all the time in the world to shoot it. I think that's what we're going to touch on shortly is actually the shot and the shot placement and how to get in range and that kind of thing with Couta. But it's awesome because you've got time on Couta, as long as you've got enough breath hold to actually get the shot in. So upsize your equipment, upsize your gun if that's what your target species is. I think I actually have shot a Couta with a standard 90 with a single band, single wrap. So, you know, it can be done, especially with techniques in hunting Couta, and it's quite specific compared to other species, like Wahoo. They just want nothing to know with you. Where Couta, Brad always told me, I think I'm just going to roll into this. I think, Brad said to me, if you can see it in time and you've got enough breath hold, you should shoot 98% of the Couta that you see. So they always turn. I mean, I don't know you guys. I'm sure you guys have all the guys who've shot a few Couta in their life. They're running out of breath and they'll extend and they'll take a shot at a Couta and their spear will drop and the spear will hang below you and the barb will be flattering and the Couta will do a big arc and turn around and come straight back and look at your spear. They generally don't. They're not so skittish. They're not like snook. Snook come in and they swim out, and you got a quick dive down, snap shoot. A Couta, if you've got a long gun, all you do is you dive down, get to his level, pull in behind his tail. So if a Couta is swimming like this, so here I am, he's watching me with this eye. So all I do is I shift to this side. Now you can't see me, so he turns like that. And you just shift behind him, and he turns like this. And then eventually he gets frustrated and he turns and he gets a good look. And while you're doing this, all you do is you accelerate behind him, get in range, turn behind him, and then when he tries to turn this way, you just go behind him again, and he'll turn 90, and you got a plumb shot at him. I promise you. But also, you've got to chase him. You can't just swim after him and then stop and think he's going to turn and he drifts away from you and you think you're going to get a shot. You got to keep chasing him the whole time. You're trying to play that cat and mouse game behind his tail. And as I said, I'm sure you guys have all seen it. Well, the guys who shot a few Couta or missed a few Couta, they normally do a big half circle arc and then come straight back to you. The ones you've missed. I don't know if it's the sound of the gun going off or that kind of thing, but they really are easy to shoot compared to most fish. If you've got enough time and you've got a big enough breath on. As I said, the problem is you're either coming off the floor and then you see one and now you've got to chase it and you're coming off the floor because you're out of air, or you've just surfaced and there's one in your flash and you've got to dive down and chase it. So, you know what I mean? And there's no point in pushing yourself, or you know, bad things can happen. No fish is worth that for sure. So, you just gotta gauge the situation. But if you can see one in time, they're really not difficult to shoot. So,
Markus, question here from Andrew. Is there a certain type of current they prefer?
Yeah, our prominent current on our coastline is north to south. Obviously, due to the Gullis current. Sorry, I was just trying to think. The Gullis current, which flows down from Mozambique, which is the warm water. And I don't know why it is, but fish generally swim into the current. So I think, especially game fish, they have to use less energy to get oxygen flow over the gills. So yeah, absolutely a north-south current. Yeah, that's definitely the current to be diving in. Yeah.
And reverse current, or they just one of those fish that disappear in the reverse?
Yeah, you know what? The fish swim in the sea, eh? Where do they disappear to? If you dive enough and you do enough trips and you kind of learn reverse current spots. Not that they as productive. I don't know if the fish just feed a little bit better. It might be barometric pressure. Who knows? But yeah, you shoot fish, you go diving. Same thing with fishing. You catch fish, you go fishing. You just need to think a little bit more. If the current's reverse, you need to just plan your attack a little bit better. Just dive different sides of the reef, different drop-offs. Start on different sides of the reef when you're going to swim out. And you'll shoot fish. You will. But the best days I've had is on a north-south current, yeah.
When you're doing a shory from sort of home, you mentioned earlier that these fish are swimming in sort of 12.5 to 35 meters of water. Obviously, in local waters, you're not going to get that sort of viz. So I'm gathering that you're down on the floor already, looking for those fish. You're not going to spot it from the surface and have time to breathe up and dive on it from the surface.
100%. Local diving. Most of the Couta I've shot when the water is not like, okay, Couta water, I'm going to dive for Couta now. Or it's funny, like you'll swim out and you'll be like, okay, if you dive enough, you'll be like, this is Couta water, you're going to dive for Couta now. or specifically the pushing tide, north-south currents, you're going to go to this ledge where in the past years you found Couta at this time of the year, and then you'll dive those spots. Yeah, I mean, the Couta you shoot, well, the Couta I've shot by surprise have generally been like I've been kicking off the floor, coming back up with a cray in my hand, and you're like, shit, there's a Couta. And you've got very limited time to actually put the shot in. That's a tough one. It's a tough one locally. I think that's why a lot of fish aren't shot locally, because the water is not as clean. People don't even see them. They swim. That thing swims straight over your head, and you don't even look up. I mean, your vision is like this, eh? And unless you're looking up and looking around, and not looking for a fish, Couta's not going to come and swim in front of you and completely cover your mark. You got to look for the spot, the tail, the outline, the shadow on the sand, that kind of thing. So,
in some of the chats that we've been having recently, specifically the kayak fishing groups, I was listening to sort of Brod's one yesterday. In your experience, you've dived a lot with Brod, and coming up to croc season, what's your take on those crocs? Where are you looking for them?
Sure. From my experience with big Couta, they're less interested in your flasher for sure. Little shotties will like bolt up to your flasher, have a look, swim around, dart off, chase them, you dart back this way, turn, stop, get a shot, kind of thing. But the big fish, hold on one second. The big fish, I found the swimming a lot deeper, and they're definitely a little bit less wise, less interested in you. So it is. I don't know. I can just go from past experience. The biggest fish I've shot have been on the floor, like almost right on the floor, and just cruising. And all you just got to be in the right place to intercept them and get a shot in. And it's quite a wide fish to get a shot. I normally aim between the two tails. Between the two dorsal fins. That's the widest part of the fish. For me, that's the best place to aim and shoot and get a good holding shot and fight the fish. Again, as far as the big fish go, later in the season, definitely better for the bigger fish. So.
Your opinion on diving with a reel gun versus a float line?
Yeah, quite a controversial one. A reel gun for a beginner is not ideal, but it is the way forward. Just that freedom of movement, and the way to do it, I'll put this on record now, is like I won't dive with a reel gun without a belt reel. That's your backup in your lifeline. Reel gun for sure. It's definitely a lot more maneuverable. There's no drag. You're not trying to fight your float while you're trying to chase the fish or anything like that. But you need to be a lot more careful. Stuff can go wrong very quickly with a reel gun. So it's not for the newbie guys. I shot a lot of fish with a float line and a bungee and a buoy line. It's not a problem. And even if we do shoot a very, very good fish, we still put especially if we boat diving, we will put a float onto the reel gun. You just clip it between the front muzzle and the reel. You just clip the floats on there, let everything go, get on the boat, get a second gun, put a shot in the fish again, and that's it. I don't know. I didn't hear Pete's chat earlier, but I honestly believe that Pete and myself diving together, we've got a very good method that works very, very well, which is about getting fish in the boat. And dive buddy is a big thing. So you want to rely on your mates. Someone shoots a good fish, kick and scream, get everyone over, get everyone on the boat, get a float on it. Everyone help each other, and let's just get that fish on the boat, which is fantastic. I think would have landed half the fish if we didn't have that mentality when we go diving.
How much pressure are you putting on that fish when you're fighting it?
Sure. That all comes down to your shots and your shot placement. I think it goes down to, once you pull the trigger, you kind of know if you shot the fish well, and where you shot it. If the fish flicked just before you shot it, and then you can put a lot of pressure, especially on a Couta. They're not soft like wahoo. Like a wahoo, you got to pull them up like this. But Couta, if you shot them through a spine, and the shot's right through, you've used the real gun, you got a full shot right through, you can put a bit of pressure. Also sharks. It's a problem that a wahoo kind of keeps on the surface when he's running, and if there's a shark, that's not a problem. Sharks don't really, they're swim bladders. I think they don't like to chase fish right to the surface to eat them. So they kind of like to stay at a level. Whereas a Couta, once he starts getting sore and tired, he goes down, and often he gets attacked like that. When he just goes down, the Zambi's swimming on the floor, and he just waits for it, and he just chows it. You just swim slowly underneath you while you're fighting the fish, and then you just. So there's that point where you're fighting the fish. It comes with how bad is the attack. And you know what? I'd rather pull the spear out of the fish, trying to get it away from the shark, than actually getting attacked. So that's my personal preference. But that goes with any fish. So that pressure thing is just, I guess it comes down to the experience and just, gut feel in the moment. So, yeah.
So I know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Your opinion on, whilst we're talking about pressure that you can put on these fish, your opinion on things like drop heads?
Yeah. I haven't used a drop head right from any of the manufacturers that I've used that has actually worked successfully. It's just ended in tears. In theory, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the Aussie guys like Barry Paxman and that kind of thing, those like only use drop heads, and they shoot some incredible fish. And all that is doing is, I guess, is saving your shot. I mean, your spears bend, guys. I mean, rubbers perish, spears bend, wishbone snap. Okay, like hooks rust, fishing line gets brittle, leaders need to be changed. It's consumable items. So as far as spears go, I'm just going to get into equipment. Like for me, spear fishing is I'll use a 7mm spear with a single barb. I used a double barb for a while, but I wasn't such a fan. Yeah, single barb, 7mm spear for Couta. Wahoo. I'm not a fan of kicker bands and overloading guns and that kind of thing. I honestly think that you power the gun into its not its maximum, but somewhere in the middle. You start overpowering guns. If something silly like your spear is bent by like a mill, it's going to make a massive difference if your gun is like at 110% power as opposed to 80% power, which is its prime power. But again, you don't want to have that fish of a lifetime and not have enough power to shoot that fish properly. You know what I mean? So it's a fine line, and every person is different. And again, it just comes down to, what works for you and what you're comfortable with. Don't be lazy. I think folks like Pete overthink things, but at the same time, I'm very glad that I dive a lot with him, because he actually forces me to think about things. I think I'm a bit lazy when it comes to that kind of thing. So I do owe a little bit to him with keeping my gear in check and making sure everything's like top notch, changing your wishbones regularly, shortening your rubbers, that kind of thing. I get lazy. So yeah, drop heads, not such a fan, but I haven't completely given up on it. I think I just don't think the solution is for a workable drop head is readily available just yet.
Whilst we're on gear, overhang of your spear on the gun. What's your opinion there?
Okay.
How much?
I've always dived with a longer overhang and a slightly more powered up gun. So yeah, it doesn't faze me. A short overhang, long overhang. Obviously, the long overhang, your spear is heavier, so you're gonna get more impact. It's the same as ballistics, with anything, with hunting, with a rifle, with a bullet, with anything. So a longer overhang, you're gonna have a lot more punch, but your spear is gonna be a little bit slower. But does that really make a difference? As long as your gun's powered enough up for, I'm all for a long overhang.
Any other tips you can think of to try and bring those fish in, or spotting fish or anything like that, just in your experience?
Yeah, I spoke about it a little bit earlier. Couta in particular swim in a water column, so it comes with experience. But just try and identify that water column that the fish might be swimming in. Also, which direction they're swimming in, and don't set your flasher deeper than you can see from the surface, if that's how you're going to dive from the surface, or set your flasher deep enough so when you're lying on the floor looking up, you can see your flasher clearly, or something swims in on it. Yeah, that's all I can say is with trying to spot fish, and generally they'll swim into the current. So if you're drifting along with your flasher, okay, the fish is swimming this way, and you and your flasher, so already there's no point in, if your flash is here and it's drifting this way, there's no point in diving behind it looking this way, because the fish are going to be swimming. So you need to dive, if your flash is here, and it's drifting this way, you need to dive this side of your flash. And often your flasher will drift slower than you, so you actually need to move away from it as it's drifting, and then dive down, and then come up this side. Because if you get in the water on this side, as you guys are drifting, you actually start drifting away from it. And the ideal situation is, if you have dived before, your flash is in front of you, drifting away from you down current, and the fish swims up current onto your flasher. Then you've got all the time in the world to shoot that fish. And that goes with wahoo, that goes with snook, that goes with couta, that goes with everything.
Awesome. Guys, anybody else got some questions there?
Ryan, I'm going to get a beer. Give me 2 minutes.
Go for it.
Not even 30 seconds. Fine, let's about to go.
No one else with questions, guys?
Come on, guys, anything.
Looks like you covered everything, what?
No, well.
So let's talk about destinations, Markus. When this is over, where's the first place you're going diving, apart from Westbrook?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're already talking about a Sodwana trip, for sure. Also, Luke Garlick, another very, very good spearo, undercover guy. He can shoot a few fish. Maybe we chat to him, and maybe we get him on the group as well one day.
Yeah.
From Namibia, he can give a lot of inputs on spearfishing. We're talking about a Transkei trip. Yeah, I must say the most amazing places I've dived, places I really want to dive again, is Sodwana, Vidal, obviously, Westbrook, just because but it's my home turf. I've got a thing for that place. And then Transkei. Transkei is just out of this world, like next level diving. So I think when we come out of this lockdown, it's going to be August, September, and if you can get a gap in the weather, that's prime Transkei time. So.
You're not going to be targeting Couta there. What's your target species when you go down there?
No, that's as good a fish hunting as you'll ever get. That's whitewater diving, shooting big reef fish, doggers, quincies, Garrick. Well, Garrick. I mean, I feel sorry for those things.
You're allowed to say Garrick. It's fine.
Yeah. But no, I honestly do. I do feel bad for those poor things nowadays. But yeah, it's just a different style of diving. It's like a different reef. It's crazy, you always think about the shark aspect in the Transkei. I've had very limited contact with sharks there, but when I have, they've been pretty aggro. But again, I've had some of the most insane diving and not even seen a shark there. So yeah.
So message from Pete here. Pete says, that reminds me, you owe me a spear. I don't know if he's talking to you or I don't know if he's talking to you or me.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Bjorn asks, where did you get that beer from?
Ask him where's arrow. Pete, where's your arrow? That's a no-name brand, eh? Pineapple beer.
Can you still see after that?
Yeah. No, it's yeah, I have some mates there.
Guys, well, we're approaching the hour mark. I think if anybody's got questions, ask them now. Pete, hashtag too soon. Show us your camera, Pete.
Tomorrow we'll make up for it, Pete.
All right, guys. I think that probably brings us to a close. Markus, thanks very much for sharing, but I really appreciate it. Thanks for persevering on the IT front.
Pleasure.
We've got a new job for you when you get out of fishing guiding.
Yeah. Well, this works at least.
All right, lads. Shot. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to put the recording up on YouTube as well, hopefully when we're done here. But yeah, Bobby, thanks very much for sharing with us. Appreciate it. I certainly learned some things, and I hope everybody picked up something out of that.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, legend. Thanks, boys. Have a good one, eh?